Okay. So, hi and welcome to the London Buddhist Center. My name's Danayutta, and in a few moments we'll be doing a little yoga class, and the yoga class will be themed around overcoming the hindrance of anxiety. Welcome to the stream, and if you're practicing with me today, see if you can make sure that you've set up your yoga mat well. See if you can get your props if you have them. I think it would actually be helpful to have a couple of old books that you wouldn't mind sort of stepping on, or sort of uh, this sized shape props. Whatever you have to hand, that would be great. When I've been practicing at home, what I've been doing is using a couple of old copies of Encyclopedia Britannica. They're quite heavy, but they're quite sturdy. So you can go and get those now. I think they'll be quite helpful for the class. So just to let you know that in the room today, there is Polly. Polly's behind the laptop, behind the camera, and it's just two of us here today. I don't know, Polly, are there people joining us or? Okay, yeah, it's really, really welcome. Do say hi. So it'd be really nice for me to know who's practicing along with me. And it also would be really nice to hear where you're practicing from. Over the last few weeks, I know people have been taking their laptops and their phones out and practicing in the garden. It's sort of warm-ish in London, but it's not as sunny as it has been. So I don't know if you are practicing in the garden, but just to say that if you are practicing in the garden, what you might want to do, because the ground can be quite uneven, what you might want to do is just to make sure that if there's a slope at all, put your head at the higher bit of the slope rather than the lower bit. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so welcome if you've just joined us. My name's Danayutta, and in a couple of minutes or so, we're going to be doing a little yoga class. And the theme of the yoga class today is overcoming anxiety. So we'll just wait a couple of minutes. Oh, very nice. Yeah, hi Fred, hi Vidyataka. Well, actually, I haven't really taught yoga online very much, so I'm looking forward to the class as well. Okay, so it's just gone 12 noon here in London, and I just wanted to say welcome again. Welcome if this is your first time to the London Buddhist Center. Welcome if this is your first time practicing yoga with me. My name's Danayutta, and the theme of today's class is overcoming anxiety. And how yoga can help us do that. So I have been reflecting on anxiety for the last few weeks, partly because there has been quite a lot of anxiety in my own experience, and my own experience of the lockdown, and my experience of what's been going on in the world. So I've been, I suppose, practicing with anxiety, sort of using yoga and using meditation to sort of help me as tools to look at my anxiety and transform anxiety. So transforming anxiety, channeling anxiety, moving towards a more peaceful, more effective state. And I thought that maybe in my experience, and this might chime with your experience, or it might be slightly different, but in my own experience, I think there are about like 3 kinds of anxiety that I encounter. The first kind of anxiety is a kind of like a low-level background anxiety. So like I've got like a slight injury on my shoulder, and it sort of sits in my mind. It doesn't really dominate my experience, but it's sort of there in the background. So kind of like a low-level kind of anxiety. So that's the first one. The second kind of anxiety that I've encountered is a kind of quite big, quite spiky kind of restlessness. So I know for a little while I was worried about my job and money and sort of like big things like that. And those kinds of anxieties were quite dominant. There's a very, very, very helpful Sanskrit word to describe this experience, and the Sanskrit word is kaukirtya. I thought I'd tell you the Sanskrit word because I think the shape of the word with all its K's and its T's and its Y's, the shape of the word sort of gives a sense of that kind of spiky, restless energy. It's kind of a bit up and down, and you're a bit all over the place, and you can't sort of like sit down and concentrate on anything. And then the third kind of anxiety that I've encountered over the last few days is a kind of numbing, knotty, tight anxiety. The other day, I was talking to a friend, and she was being very, very open and very, very honest. And she started talking to me about moments where she feels like she's a racist, or feels like she doesn't want to get close to people because they're so different from her. Their backgrounds are so different from hers. And in a way, it was like a very, very beautiful, very open, very honest thing for her to reveal to me. At the same time, I just felt quite scared and quite numb, and I felt like I really, really didn't know how to respond. It's almost as if my energy had just kind of shrunk and tightened, and I was just like a big knot. It's this like spike of anxiety. So that might chime with your experience, it might not. But I thought I'd just bring those different examples in, because I think when we're working with anxiety, one of the things that we need to do is to let go of the content of the anxiety and see if we can really notice the energy. What kind of energy does the experience have? And see if we can meet that. See if we can meet that kind of energy and see if we can transform it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a fairly sort of more dynamic end of yoga, of movement. We'll do quite a lot of movements. And then the other thing I thought we could do is make quite big and stretchy movements, just to like sort of stretch out any sort of spiky or tight energy. And then we'll also try to channel the energy a little bit with some more challenging postures. But see if you can just work to whatever level that suits you. So don't do anything that you feel will be unsafe for you. Okay, I've said quite a lot. So let's just sit down for a moment. We'll spend a few moments tuning into our breath, and then we'll just start moving. So you might want to come into a cross-legged seated posture if you haven't already. You might want to lengthen your back and just close your eyes for a few moments, letting all the words fall away. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. We'll just take one more inhale all together. Inhale. And exhale. Okay, so you can open your eyes, interlace your fingers, take a big stretch. So you turn your palms out, move your hands away from your chest. See if you can curl your spine round. And as you breathe in, just stretch your shoulder blades away from each other. Breathe out and relax. Breathe in, shoulder blades stretch. Breathe out and relax. One more in breath. And relaxing. Good. Inhale, reach your arms up. And then we'll just take a couple of sideways bends. Stretch to the right. Inhale, coming all the way up. And stretch to the left. Inhale, coming all the way up. Let's just do that again. So you breathe in. And come back to center. Breathe out. And come back to center. Let's just take a couple of quick twists. So turning around to the right. Breathing in. Letting the spine lengthen and the rib cage expand. And then let's turn the other way. Breathing in, lengthening the back, rib cage moving out. Just take another breath here. And inhale and release. Good. Just going to take my caser off. You can come off your blocks and come onto your hands and your knees. We're going to do a little bit of cat-cow. So just moving smoothly and deliberately. So you breathe out, Lift the spine up towards the ceiling, tuck the head in, tuck the tailbone in. Breathe in, drop the belly, lift the tailbone, lift the chin. So just moving with the breath. Exhale, and then inhale. You breathe out, lifting the spine, tucking the head in. Breathing in, dropping the belly, lifting the tailbone, lifting the chin. Let's just do one more. You really exhale, stretch and lengthen the spine. Good. And then tuck your toes under. Let's all come into downward dog. So just thinking about downward dog and thinking about making big shapes, see if you can imagine really lifting your belly button up. See if you can imagine your tailbone moving up and away from your hands. And just spend a little moment noticing what you're doing with your hands. Can you make big hands? So spread your fingers, ground the palms, a big shape, stretching out the backs of the legs if you can. And then bringing your knees all the way down. Let's do another little back stretch, shoulder stretch. Reach your hands forwards. Keep your hips high above your knees. Put your forehead towards your yoga mat, or if you can manage it, drop your chin and press the breastbone down as well. So just a big stretch through the shoulders. Okay, we'll just take 2 more breaths here. Really breathe in. Make a big shape, lifting the tailbone up, stretching the hands forwards. And then when you're ready, you can bring your hands back underneath your shoulders. Let's come back to downward dog. So tuck your toes under, lift your hips up and back. So really noticing and thinking about the shape of downward dog. So starting with big hands, thinking about the belly, moving the tailbone away from the hands. Imagine making the biggest downward dog with the longest spine that you've ever made. Okay, so let's do a little standing sequence from here. So come into revolved Parsvakonasana. Step your right foot forwards. Left hand comes closer to your right foot. Straighten out the back leg. Lift your right shoulder and lift your right arm. So the back leg straight, the knees off the floor. See if you can have a sense of this being a very big posture. So your arms are broad. There's a whole long line from the crown of your head all the way to your back heel. And that line is straight and there's a big twist going along the line. Breathe in one more time. Make the shape even bigger at the apex at the in-breath. And then let's come into warrior one. So feet flat on the floor, reaching your arms up, warrior one. So again, warrior one as a big long shape, having a long stance, letting the shoulders be broad, the arms long. Include your fingertips in your awareness and lift the chin and look up between your hands if you can. We'll just take 2 more slow breaths. Breathing and breathing. And then coming into warrior two. So in warrior two, your arms are long. So warrior two is already naturally quite a big shape. So see if you can have a sense that you're making your arms even longer. And you want to have a sense of stretch and space, but without strain. So if you notice that you're hyperextending your elbows or your shoulders are reaching up, see if you can just drop your shoulders. And then give yourself a little correction. You sorry saw me doing that. So you give yourself a little correction by making sure that your shoulders are stacked over your hips. Most of us will probably want to lean forwards a little bit. So stack your shoulders over your hips. We'll just take 1 more breath in warrior two. Just stretching without strain. And let's come into Parsvakonasana. So bend your right knee even more. Left arm comes up and over, coming into a sideways bend. So you can rest your arm on your knee like this. Or if you're a little bit more familiar with the posture, you might want to come and bring your hand all the way down next to your foot using some yoga blocks or a couple of encyclopedias. if you need them. Just coming into a sideways bend. Again, really think of the length and the space in the left side of the body. You want to make a big, long shape. We'll just take one more breath here, extending the shape on your in-breath, and then on your next inhale, coming out of the posture, standing all the way up. Let's go the other way. So Parsvakonasana, the same sequence of postures, but in reverse. So bend your left knee now. Right arm comes up and over, making a long shape, a long line with the right side of the body. Breathing, making space. Again, if you want to, you can bring your hand down towards the floor. You'll probably need to bend your knee a little bit more. And just do make sure that you've got a long stance for this posture. So your feet are quite far apart. Remember to breathe, and as you breathe, extend the line. We're making big shapes today. Stretching out, smoothing out the energy in the body. And then we're going to come into Warrior Two. So coming all the way up, you might need to bring your feet a little bit closer together. Arms at shoulder level. Again, give yourself that little correction. If you tend to lean forward in Warrior Two, just drop the back hip and see if you can stand up tall. Now look along your left arm. So see if you can notice what Warrior Two feels like from the inside. And what you're looking for is a sense of space and length without strain. So look out for any hyperextension of the elbows. See if you can give your elbows a little micro bend. Drop your shoulders down and back. Stand up tall. We'll just take one more breath in Warrior Two. And then we're going to swivel around. So keep your feet where they are. Just turn around so that your left leg's now in front of you. And we're going to come into Warrior One. So bend your left knee, straighten the back leg. A long shape in Warrior One, particularly from the heel of your back leg all the way up the right side of the body, up into your fingertips. And include your fingertips in your awareness. Give them a little wriggle. And then if you can, for the last breath, look up between your hands. Okay, so coming into the last posture of this particular sequence, see if you can straighten up the back leg. Lift the left arm, coming into revolved Parsvakonasana. So a big shape, really feeling along the line from your back heel all the way towards the crown of your head and broad across the shoulders. Breathing smoothly. So just noticing if you're starting to hitch in the breath. Slow, long, deliberate breath, smoothing out the energy again. Okay, that's going to come into downward dog. So both hands next to your left foot. Lift your hips up and down, up and back. The sense of downward dog. If you're getting a little bit tired, because it is a bit of an energetic start to the class, you might just want to come down into child's pose, and that's absolutely fine. You can do that at any point. Otherwise, stay in downward dog, really spread your fingers, lift your hips up and back. We'll just take one more breath. So maybe everyone come back to downward dog if you haven't already. And let's take another forward bend. So step your right foot forwards. We're going to do a straight leg forward bend. And what I'd like you to do today is just to have your hands on your hips. So we're going to do Parsvakonasana. We usually have our hands in reverse prayer. But today, let's just put our hands on our hips. And really think about the forward bend and the length of the spine. So straightening both legs as much as you can as you come into the forward bend. I think often what happens here when people have really tight hamstrings is that your legs start to shake. And it's really important that if that starts to happen, you just stop trying to bend forwards anymore and just hold there. And also that you don't sort of jam your knee backwards. What you want to do when you straighten your legs in yoga, as a general point, is that you want to lift your kneecaps rather than having a sense that you're jamming your knee backwards. We'll just take another breath here, and then let's come all the way up. Swivel around to face the other side. I'm just going to change my feet, but you don't need to. You can just swivel around, and then you can just come into a forward bend again. So over your left leg this time, again, making sure that your legs are fairly straight. With your hands on your hips, what you can just make sure is that your hips are aligned. So probably what will happen is that your right hip will want to lift and your left hip will want to drop. And you just need to slightly correct that. So hips are facing the short edge of your mat. Again, try not to jam your knee back. See if you can instead think about lifting your kneecaps as you fold forwards. Just take another breath here. All right, inhale and come all the way up. So bring your feet together. We're going to come and do a little bit of standing postures. So other standing postures, bend both knees, come into Utkatasana. Let me just step so that I'm in the center of the frame again. So your knees are bent, your feet are together. Your toes are on the floor, your heels are on the floor. Utkatasana, breathing, lengthening the spine, reaching your arms up. Okay, as you come out of Utkatasana, we're going to come into a forward bend. So step your feet hip width apart, hold on to your elbows, drop your head, and just forward bend for a few moments. We're going to come back to Utkatasana in a moment, so when you're ready, bringing your feet back together, bend both knees, reach your arms up. So be a little bit careful here. Sometimes this dropping of the head and lifting it back up can make you a little bit dizzy. If that happens to you, just move a little bit more slowly, or maybe sit down for a moment or two. Okay. So we're just going to move with the breath now. So as you exhale, drop your head, and inhale, come back into Utkatasana. So you get a little swing. We'll just stay in Utkatasana for a few moments. Another way to work with anxiety is to channel the energy with a little bit of challenge. So probably you might be starting to feel the posture in your thighs. That's okay, just channeling energy. So exhale, fold forwards, inhale, coming back to Utkatasana. And then we'll just do that one last time. So just hold Utkatasana for a few more breaths if you can. You'll be all right. You'll probably be able to walk up the stairs tomorrow, I promise. Okay, exhale and inhale. Last little Utkatasana. Just breathe, feet on the floor. Include your fingers in your awareness. Okay, straight legs, hands down by your sides. Well done. Let's do a few forward bends. Take your feet wide. So I've actually got quite flexible hamstrings, so I tend to have my feet a little bit closer. But if the backs of your legs aren't particularly flexible, you might want to have your feet wider. The main thing here, we're going to do Padahastasana, which is a straight leg forward bend. It's just to make sure that your feet are parallel. So have a little look at your feet. If your feet are turned out, bring your toes in, feet parallel. Straighten both legs, hands on your waist. And come into a forward bend, dropping your hands down to the floor. Now, if your hands don't quite touch the floor, you might want to do two things. One is to get your props. The other is to walk your feet a little bit further apart and just drop your head here. Keep straightening the legs. Don't worry if you feel very, very far away from the ground. That's completely normal. Just have a sense of lifting your sit bones. We'll just take another breath here. Long breathing, slow breathing. Okay, hands on your waist, on your next inhale, coming all the way up. Give your knees a little bit of a bend, rest your hamstrings, interlace your fingers behind your back. You can move your props away now. We're going to do Prasarita C, where we keep the legs straight and we move the hands away from the bottom and down towards the floor. So, moving your hands away from your bottom, down towards the floor. Again, just breathing slowly, breathing deeply. Keeping the legs straight, lifting the hamstrings, lifting your sit bones. Oh, one more thing is that we tend to drop our weight towards our heels, so just make sure that you're standing on your toes as well. You're not leaning back too much. One more breath. Okay, and then inhale, coming all the way up. Good. So bring your feet a little bit closer together. We're going to do one more low forward bend, this time with our feet a little bit closer. We're going to do Padahastasana. So stand with your feet hip width apart. Bend your knees, fold forwards, and see if you can slide your palms face up underneath your feet. So this is called Padahastasana, foot to hand posture. And you'll need to bend your knees probably to make sure that your toes are touching your wrists. So the main thing about this posture is actually the contact between the soles of your feet and the palms of your hand. Now drop your head and shoulders, relax your shoulders away from your ears. And then if your knees are bent, start to straighten your legs. And if your legs are completely straight, you can start to bend your elbows and draw the crown of your head down towards the ground. Now slow breathing. Inhale. Exhale. One more. Inhale. And exhale. Well done. From here, release your hands. Maybe take your feet a little bit further apart. And then we're going to come into Malasana. So turn your feet out, take your feet a little bit further apart. I'm just going to turn sideways. You don't have to. I'm just going to turn sideways because I think it's a little bit easier to see. If your heels are off the ground in Malasana, what you might want to do is just to get your little props, your 2 books, and just pop them underneath your heels so that you're very, very stable in Malasana. Take your elbows onto the insides of your knees. And often what can happen in Malasana is that we want to hunch and curl our spine down. So see if you can just make sure that you notice what's happening in your spine and see if you can lengthen your spine as much as you can. So staying in Malasana, hopefully if there are blocks underneath your heels or your heels are grounded in some way, Malasana is not too difficult. Yeah. So right at the start of the class, just in case you missed it, one of the things I was saying was channeling the energy of anxiety by just doing some things that are a bit challenging, some things that will need you to actually concentrate. I think that's one of the things that yoga can really help us. You know, if you're thinking about not falling on your face, probably you're not thinking about the thing that's causing you anxiety. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to come into Bakasana. So some of you will know how to do this, and you can just get into Bakasana and hold it for 5 breaths. Otherwise, bring your hands down onto the floor. Have your elbows on the insides of your knees. That's really, really important. If your knees aren't touching your arms, you're probably doing a handstand, which is about 1,000,000 times more difficult. And then come onto your tiptoes. So you lean forwards, come onto your tippy toes. Now lift one foot off the floor, and then you can put it down. Lift another foot, the other foot off the floor, and then you can put it down. And then without jumping, you might just want to try lifting both feet off the floor. You'll need to squeeze your elbows with your knees, and you'll need to engage your belly quite a lot. Okay, and then come all the way down. Sometimes what can happen learning Bakasana is we can feel that our arms are too short and our legs are too long. So if that happens for you, what you might want to do is just to stand on a couple of props, so a couple of books or a couple of blocks if you have them. And then probably what you'll find is that your knees get closer to your arms. And then again, same thing here. You just lean forwards, squeeze your belly, squeeze the feet, lift one foot, and then lift the other foot. So hopefully you're getting on okay with Bakasana. We're just going to take another 3 breaths here. So remember to breathe even as you stay in Bakasana. And then you can come all the way down. Good. So you can get rid of your props, put them to one side. Let's come into Chaturanga. So stack your shoulders over your hands and then come all the way down. You're just going to start to slow the class down now. So we're quite close to the ground. Have your hands by your sides. We're going to do Shalabhasana feet a little bit apart. To lie here for a little moment, just catching your breath. See if you can notice what's happening in your belly and see if you can lift your belly off the floor. So engage your belly, lift the belly off the floor, tuck the belly into the spine. And keeping the belly tucked in, we're going to come into Shalabhasana. So lifting the legs, lifting the chest, shining the breastbone forwards. Breathing, breathing, slow breathing. Well done. Exhale, coming all the way down. Give your lower back a little shake, and then we'll just do that again. So feeling into your belly, first of all, lifting the belly button off the ground, keeping the legs straight, lifting up. Now, it's really important in Shalabhasana just to make sure that your legs are straight. The moment you bend your knees, your thighs drop towards the ground. So keep the legs straight, lift the thighs off. Keep feeling into the belly and lifting the belly off the floor. Shining the breastbone forwards, remembering to breathe. And exhale, coming all the way down. Give your lower back a little shake. Well done. Let's come into Sphinx. So, again, when you're in Sphinx, try not to let your belly collapse against the ground. We'll come into Sphinx quite active. So feel into your belly. See if you can lift your belly button off the floor. Be active. What happens then is that it makes it a little bit easier for your shoulders to be broad. If you collapse your belly into the ground, the shoulders tend to come up and stick next to your ears. But lifting the belly off the floor gives a little bit more space across the shoulders. Shine the breastbone forwards, lift the chest. And just take a few breaths here. Now, a couple of options for you. One is you can just look across your right shoulder. If you want to take the twist a little bit deeper, you can bring your right hand underneath your right shoulder and move your chest. Look towards the back. Now take slow breaths here. So it's a back bend with a twist. And then if you've moved your hands, just replace your hands so that your both arms are in Sphinx now. Other side. Again, you can just look over your left shoulder, and that's absolutely fine. Or you can move your left hand to where your elbow was. Lift. Press into the hand and lift, looking round towards the back behind you. And again, remember to breathe slowly. Okay, inhale, look forwards, and then release. Bring both hands underneath your shoulders. See if you can push yourselves either into child's pose, stretching your arms forward, still making quite a big shape, or into downward dog. Either is a forward bend. So child's pose is a forward bend. Downward dog is also a forward bend. But see if you can concentrate on making big shapes. So even though child's pose can feel like a small shape, if you walk your hands forwards and stretch through your shoulders, it's quite a big shape. Okay. So let's do a couple of stretchy things now. So what you can do if you've got a yoga block is to pop your yoga block underneath your left knee, just to give the knee a little bit of padding. If you've got a cushion or a pillow, you can use that too. If nothing's really to hand, what you can do as well is just to fold your yoga mat over, just to make sure you give your knee a little bit of padding. You're now in a low lunge with your right foot forwards, and we're just going to move the hips from side to side, just stretching out the hips. So if you don't feel anything very much at all, probably what you'll need to do is just to move your right foot a little bit further forwards. Probably for most of us, we might have been sitting still for a little bit in the lockdown, so probably our hips can be quite tight. So you should feel a little stretch down the front of your left hip. And twisting the hips from side to side, turning the hips from side to side will just change the nature of the stretch. So that's all we're doing, just a low lunge and twisting the hips from side to side. Remember to breathe. We're coming towards a slower portion of the class where we're calming down our energy. Done quite a lot of standing postures, quite a lot of moving around. This is like a little bit more directed moving around. Okay, and now we're just going to change sides. So you might want to come through downward dog to change sides, or you might just want to switch your legs. Again, making sure that there's a little bit of padding for your back knee. You can fold your mat over or use a block or a cushion. I really encourage you to do that because we're spending a bit of an extended amount of time in these low lunges. So make sure that your left foot's really far enough forward so that the heel can stay on the floor and that you're dropping your hips downwards and forwards. You'll know that you'll need to do that if you don't feel anything in your hips. And then all we're doing is just twisting the hips from side to side. Often when I teach this here at the London Buddhist Center, what often happens is that people just move their heads and they kind of like move their neck from side to side like that. They just turn their necks rather than their hips. So notice if that's happening for you, you're just sort of like looking from one side to the other. Remember what we want to do is just to stretch out the hips, and it's the hips that we want to move rather than the neck. So stretching out the front of your right hip, dropping the hips downwards and forwards, just moving smoothly, ironing out all the little wrinkles in your hips. Okay, very, very good. See if you can somehow find yourself in a seated position with your legs out in front of you. I'm all tangled up with the wires. So I'm just going to turn around so that you can see me a little bit more clearly. Let's do a little forward bend. So straight leg forward bend, Parsvakonasana. Walk your hands forwards, fold forwards. Often when I'm practicing on my own these days, I've been thinking about somebody squishing me in the forward bend. So that's what my yoga teacher would often do. Sometimes he'd come and lie on my back. It's a nice little squish. Or sometimes people might just put their hands on the back of my rib cage. And this feeling of weight moving downwards and forwards. It's meant to be like a comforting sensation. So just folding forwards. If your hamstrings aren't quite long enough, you might just want to like gently bend your knees. So let your feet flop out to the side. That's fine too. What we want is the forward bend in our back rather than our hamstrings. Okay, and then inhale, coming all the way up. Tuck your right foot in. We'll come and do Danayutta. If you've got any pain in your knee, you might want to put a block underneath your knee or put a prop underneath your knee. The other thing that you can do actually is to roll up a sock and put it on the inside of your knee, like this, where my hand is, if you've got knee problems. This time we will be stretching out the hamstring. So do see if you can keep your extended leg as straight as possible. And something that might help with that is just to make sure that the extended foot is pointing up towards the ceiling. So the foot is flexed, you're pressing your heels forward, you're pointing your toes up towards the ceiling. Danayutta, folding forwards. Breathing slowly. Creating a little bit more space in the body as you breathe in. Breathing out and relaxing, softening. Creating space and engagement on the in-breath. Softening into the out-breath. Just one more. Okay, on your next inhale, come all the way up. Just change sides. Again, shifting the block around, putting up something on the inside of your knee. And then when you're ready, just making sure that your right foot is flexed, the toes are lifted up towards the ceiling. You're pressing your heel forward, the right leg is as straight as possible. Folding forwards into forward bend. Breathing. Noticing how the breath engages different parts of the body. Inhale and making some space, engaging. Exhale, relaxing. Breathing in, making space. Breathing out and relaxing. One more breath. Okay, inhale, come all the way up. So let's move into some finishing postures now. Bend your knees. Lie back, articulate back. Let's do some hip raises. So feet flat on the floor. Just make sure that your feet are slightly wider than hip width apart. Breathing in to lift your hips up. Breathing out, rolling slowly down. So inhale, rolling your hips up. Exhale, rolling your hips down. We're just going to do 3 more, so you can just close your eyes. Inhale, really feel the movement. Exhale, feel your back coming in contact with the ground in bits. So rolling the spine off the floor. And then rolling it all the way down. Let's all do 1 more. Inhale to lift. Bit by bit. Exhale, coming all the way down. Once your hips touch the ground, you can draw your knees into the chest. Wrap your arms around your legs. Rock from side to side. Take your head with you. So now is not the time to introduce any twisting. So take your head with you. You're rolling across the back of your head. Rolling from one side to the other. Just really feel the back on the ground. So you roll across the spine all the way onto one side of the back and all the way onto the other. Just do this for a little bit more. By the way, this posture is, it's called little boat posture in Sanskrit. That's the literal translation. So you might just want to, as you're rocking from side to side, imagine what kind of little boat you might be, whether you're a little canoe or a little kayak. I often think of coracles, which are completely circular shaped boats. So imagine myself as a little coracle on a lake. Okay. So stretching your legs out in front of you. We're just going to make 1 more big shape before we Shavasana. So reaching your arms back, reaching your legs forwards. Breathe in, big stretch. Breathe out and relax. Breathe in, big stretch. Breathe out and relax. Breathe in, big stretch. And breathe out and relax. Bring your hands down by your sides, palms facing the ceiling. Let your feet flop apart. So, relaxing. See if you can feel into the body as you come and settle into Shavasana. And see if you can notice if the body feels bigger, as if there's more of body, more length, more breadth. What often happens when we're anxious is that it's not just that our energy goes tight, it's also that our perspective narrows and we just sort of focused on ourselves. It's almost like we kind of get into a me sort of situation. And we're not really quite able to engage with other people or indeed engage with the world. So for the next few moments of Shavasana, see if you can really Relax back, let the chest be open. And as you do that, just imagine your perspective broadening, as if you're going from narrow screen to wide screen, as if any blinkers are coming off and you can see things more. Focus on the sense of breadth and spaciousness in the body. Now you might want to stay here lying down in Shavasana, or if you want to, you can join me for a little sitting up meditation. If that's the case, just moving slowly and rolling over onto one side, sitting all the way up. You can sit cross-legged on your props or just on the ground. Just be meditating for a minute or two. Just something very, very short to close the class and just to recall why we're practicing. We have a big impact on each other. And all of us want to have a positive impact, a good impact. So see if you can generate a heart of openness, a heart of loving kindness, a heart that's steady and courageous, a heart that reaches out to others. And see if you can recall for a moment or two what it is that you'll be going on to, whether you're just making your lunch or meeting up with a friend or housemate or parent or child. See if you can imagine doing that with a heart of metta, a heart of loving kindness. Okay, so thank you very much for tuning in, and very, very lovely to practice with you. So if you do have any questions, you can just write them quickly in the chat. If you're quick, we might be able to respond. Just to say that everything that we do here at the London Buddhist Center, well, a lot of what we do is run by donation. We try to run our center as much by donation so that everyone can benefit. At the same time, I think it's actually really, really important if you it's important to sort of invest in what you value. So if you do value what we do here at the London Buddhist Center, why don't you join our community? You join our community by participating, by supporting us. And one of the important ways of investing is to invest financially. So if you can support us with a donation for today, that'll be really, really wonderful. When we run these classes normally, we suggest a donation of £6 for 45 minutes. So I hope you feel moved to give and moved to support us. And I'll see you next week. I think I'm teaching on Monday, so see you next week. Bye. Bye.